I'm a Las Vegas native. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, and it's a wonderful city. I really plan on living here the rest of my life. I have traveled a little bit. I've been interested in art since a very early age, as far back as I can remember. I used to peddle my little drawings when I was about 6 years old to the neighbors, and what do you think about this? And we would have these really wonderful conversations about art, and they would eventually purchase some of it, and it was a really fun experience. So that's kind of how I started interacting with the world with my art. But I really never stopped making my art throughout my life. You know, there is one very poignant moment that I remember. You know, we probably have had other experiences that are related, but there's that one moment that you remember. And I was in kindergarten, and all the other kids were playing in the playground and roughhousing and doing what kids do. And I'm off in the corner and I'm making this beautiful peppermint snail, and all different colors, and I was so proud of it, and it was just it was an epic moment for a child. I think it was the first time that I realized that I could create any world that I wanted to on paper or on a surface, and it was mine. You know, I did that and I could create it, and so that was kind of the first sort of like little peek inside that mysterious land of creation and of imagination that's coming from me. It's not from a book, it's not from, you know, pictures, it's not from cartoons. It was something that I did. It's probably discovered in small increments throughout life, you know? I think mostly for me though, growing up and as a younger person, it was more internalized. It was something that was more of an internal conversation with myself. I think that in the last 6 or 7 years has been more of a connection to the rest of the world and finding my voice and sort of, you know, what my, not really message, but my expression is to the world and how I want to connect. So I would have to say in the last 6 or 7 years since I have really been working with the public and meeting people and really hearing what other people are thinking. Oh God, I can't help but be inspired all the time. Sometimes I think, is there something loose? Because everywhere I go, I'm inspired. I'm inspired right now. I'm thinking right now, like how to translate this into a painting, how to translate this experience. Some of the deeper inspirations, though, I have to say, come from nature. I'm very, very, very moved. I'm very, very, very connected. I always have been to the planet, to nature, to the bare bones of things. So if I can go out into the mountains, I travel sometimes with my father and we go up into the mountains and just sort of explore. I feel completely reset and refilled, and I have a clear vision when I walk into the studio of how to apply that. I really crave a connection, like a meaningful connection. And I don't mean like myself and my views and my intentions even, or my opinions connection, but I mean more like creating the work from here and having it go out there and become something here for somebody else that doesn't really have a lot to do with me anymore. That for me, I think is the most meaningful accomplishment when that can be achieved, I guess, if that's the word for it. But to see that relationship happen with the viewer and have them feel something, you know, fall in love with it to the point where they want to bring it home and live with it because it becomes something more meaningful to them, then it really has to do with me. I think success is being surrounded by people you love. Success is bringing kindness into the world and a sense of understanding that wasn't there before. I think those things are really successful. Art is necessary in life. God, art is life, isn't it? Life is art, art is life, that whole conversation, right? I think that, you know, human beings are walking art. They're just amazing, incredible, mysterious. I always think the artist is the most beautiful part of any art making. But I think that art is necessary. It shifts our views that weren't there before necessarily. So in other words, it helps us to see differently. It helps us to understand each other. It doesn't matter the emotional state that it evokes. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, you know, it helps us to understand. It helps us to understand ourselves, helps us to understand each other, helps us to operate more fairly in the world. And also, it just provides a sense of discovery and mystery that keeps, I think, propelling us forward to do something different. Very important to take yourself out of it somewhat and sit down with a client and really get to know them. I think that has been part of the best parts of the commissions, and if we want to bring up success again, a successful part of that as well is finding out truly what they're interested in and why they're drawn to me as an artist and which works that they're drawn to. Which color palettes do they love? What evokes, what most inspires them? I worked with this beautiful family, a young couple, they have 2 beautiful children, and I did these portraits, but we did them in a way that was more storytelling. So I kind of talked to the kids and I talked to mom and dad, and I found out, you know, what inspires you? What are some of your past experiences that are most relevant, most important to you? And so we sat down and I kind of took some notes, and then I wove together this sort of tapestry of imagery, but it was ambiguous enough that really only they would understand the importance and the heartfelt moments that are in them. I'm thinking of a bunch of things, but I can't really share them. Let's see. I secretly want to be a Navy SEAL. Okay. I love boot camp, and I am a pretty rough and tumble kind of girl, and I always have been. I was a model at 14, from 14 to 16. Was invited to be with Cosmopolitan magazine. I don't know how real that was, but anyway, it seemed pretty real at the time. Hated every second of it because I wasn't that, and now I fully understand who I am now and why I didn't care for it. Not that there's anything wrong with modeling, it's good. But I am very rough and tumble. I don't know if a lot of people know that. Oh, that's pretty easy. My father is my hero, hands down. That man has more superpowers than all the superheroes put together. He is a brilliant man, very strong man. He comes from country. Both my parents do. My mother's wonderful too. He worked very hard to give us all the things that we needed growing up. Very smart man. And to this day has been my biggest supporter of being an artist. He fully understands what it is I'm doing. He has even become an artist himself, which is incredible work. Master woodworking, sculpture, things like that. But really connects to the world in a way that I hope I strive to do. Yeah. The practical side of it is hours and hours. And I think what a lot of people might not think about as much is that artists and creators, writers, all of them, it's your life's culmination. It's all of your life that has come before that. And then you're spending hours and hours and hours. You're mixing colors, you're doing color theory, you're composing, you're sketching, you're doing studies, you're taking photographs of things for reference, you're moving items around, you're beginning again after hours and hours and weeks of work. You're starting over again because it's not quite right. You're moving all those things in that direction. And so when you see one piece of art from an artist many times, that is just years and years and years of work, but also hours and hours and hours of toil too. And all of that experience poured into that. It's very mysterious concoction of labor and imagination and a lifetime of experience. There's there's a certain meditation that happens. So I'm very calm. I'm very calm. If I have too much going on in my mind, I'll stop and break away and do some sketches and mix paint, things like that. But while I'm in the process of the work, I'm very, very sedate, very calm. To the point though, sometimes I'll get very calm. I was gonna say I'll get very emotional. So maybe the calm helps me tap into that, because I get kind of teary-eyed, and I'll have a moment of excitement where I'll be so excited that I'll be crying about it. Not like, oh yeah, but like, oh, yes, ah. And I think other artists can relate to that, where it's just like this, you just discovered the new frontier, and it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is where it's going the rest of my life, You get very excited. And those little emotional roller coasters happen. But for the most part, I have this weird sense of being a conduit, that there's an energy flowing through me and out. And it's a very calm, very, very soothing place to be, especially with the smaller works. With the larger works, it's more like I am some kind of like power generator or something. Like I can just feel the energy filling me up to the point where I feel like I'm gonna explode. When I'm working on these really large public paintings, I feel like I'm just a live wire almost. Yeah, so I guess it's varied, but for the most part, I'm just conduit. God, you know what I love about Las Vegas? I just love I'm a desert person. I'm a summer person, desert person. This winter was rough. But what I love about Las Vegas is you are surrounded by environment. It's wild, you've got Red Rock Canyon, you've got Mount Charleston, you've got just the bare bones desert. If you go out to the desert, there's a lot more out there than just beige. There's just a lot more. There are ravines and waterfalls and pools of water depending on the time of year, but there's a lot to discover out there. And then you come back into the city and you go downtown and it's like concrete, and I always describe our downtown Las Vegas as being this sort of like street smart animal that has sharper teeth and sharper claws. It's just more street smart and edgy, but you've got this sort of like, obviously the city concrete, harder edge. And then the sort of like glitz of Las Vegas and the weird facades that nothing is real, but it's here and there's no place else like it. But then you can go out and you're in nature and you have really the best of both worlds. I love that. As an artist, it's all inspiring. I'm stimulated all the time by that. Strange Days of Stardust is all about, it is my website name. It's the brand that I go by and associate with my artwork with. Strange Days of Stardust simply means that we are all made of strange days and stardust. In other words, we all have strange days, we all have difficult days, we all have brilliant days, and we're all made out of stardust. We're all made out of that same galactic, universal dust. And so it creates this one big, beautiful oneness of mind. I really like the TV room. Okay. The big panorama. The panorama. Yeah, I think that's really a cool room. They're all really cool though, and that's one of the things I love about AVs, because you can have several experiences. So you walk in and you've got chamber after chamber to sort of bounce through and have a separate experience in each room. It's pretty cool. What I really love is the idea of bringing these arts together, the audio and the visual and the sensory experience together. So I love the idea of the music. You're immersed in music and sound, and then you have the visual to sort of apply to it. So some of my work is very surreal. It's very sort of out there. So music is just the perfect union, the perfect partner for it. The emerging heads, if you will, the surfacing heads. I think those are all about the way I feel when I'm on the trail. When I'm, after I'm done running, or when I'm hiking, I also climb the mountain, whenever I get a chance. And I feel like I've become part of the environment. So their face is sort of laying either, whether it's water or whether it's earth, a lot of them are sort of embedded in this mountain landscape, and it has a very sort of desert feel to it. So I think that for me, maybe that's a big part of my inspiration coming from being on the trail and being outdoors as much as possible, is just feeling the earth against me. And I think that on that note, as I'm sitting here talking, that I'm realizing what I'm doing in it as well. And that happens for artists a lot. You know, we do these things and we put them out. We have no clue why we did part of it. And then somebody else brings up a question, or, hey, do you realize that, you know, you want to grow horns? And we're like, oh my God, I want to grow horns. I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. So now I have horns, like, awesome. But you don't see it. And that is one of the important things too about art, is there's a connection. Yeah. I didn't understand myself as well as you understood the painting to understand me through it. And you just shine the light on something, on a mystery of myself. I didn't realize what I was doing. It happens a lot. I think we're all fascinated with eyes, right? Because it's like the window to the soul, and it's a lot of mystery involved. And for me, it tells a lot about what's behind the eye. The eye really kind of gives us some insight, and it has a lot of tells around it, whether we try to hide it or not. I don't care how good a poker player you are, there's still a lot of little tells. They either show your history or it shows your moment. So I think there's something to that, but also the eye is just super interesting, isn't it? I mean, you've got this like flesh and then this wet thing, it's glossy, and the texture, and it's visceral, and you can feel it in your stomach, especially when you study it very, very closely, the anatomy of it, which brings me to the point too. I studied anatomy, physiology, and life sciences for a good 5 or 6 years, thinking I was going to go into the medical field. And what I realized is that I was more fascinated with the design of the body, how it's put together, its parts, pieces, its physiology, its chemistry, than actual practicing medicine. So I decided to apply that. That will come out sometimes in my work.